Boom, hey, what's up, Mimosas in the morning, fam? Let's give it a moment, let some people get on. Let's log in, and let's get commenting. Alrighty, who do we got in? Hey, Darnell! Let's get some waves and some waves. So again, this week we're going to be popping on talking about a whole array of social justice issues with one of my dear friends, Darnell Mitchell. You guys will love him. Extremely knowledgeable on the topic. We're going to talk about representation in the WWE and also the wrestling community, which is, if you don't know, you're going to know. Darnell will be able to fill us in better than I can. But, what's up, Sean and Ben and everybody? Welcome. And it is, if you don't understand like the WWE or the overall wrestling community, it's huge. I mean, like, huge community. Tons of people in the wrestling industry, from independent wrestlers, hello family, independent wrestlers, Progress in Japan, other different like independent wrestling groups, the WWE, NXT, their subsidiaries. So it's going to be interesting to talk about representation there, and the history of that, history and things that are going on currently that are mirroring other subjects and topics of social justice and reform 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years ago, that there is, as you see slowly over time, and you're talking hundreds of years, a slow and gradual climb, but with lots of peaks and valleys. We're in a valley right now. We're in a place where we're working very hard to continue the next upward trend, which again, you have a downward trends and upward trends consistently moving. So it's interesting. I follow, if you're on Reddit at all, there's a site called, or a page called Data is Beautiful. Let me log in here. And Data is Beautiful is amazing. It's got, sorry, I can't type and do two things at the same time. So it's got a lot of really, really good content. Hey, Lise. Really good content that's user-generated. They give a lot of their sources, and people name their sites in which they get their information. What's up, Jeremy? But they were showing an overall trend of, we're talking about worldwide equality, all sorts of stuff that's going on, and it's interesting to see in the micro versus macro issue of equal rights, gay rights, racial equality, income equality, major large trends, everything from like even infant mortality rates to it's crazy the information that can go into some of these graphs. With the one you're looking at, it was talking about social unrest and movements predicating and leading into large scale change. It's like sometimes you're talking about taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Then after that 3 steps back, you're taking 6 steps forward. So ultimately you're forward, you're forward 4 steps, but you're not, or 2 steps, but not necessarily, making the large strides that you want. Over the course of time, yes, things are increasing, but we haven't seen an exponential spread in that going up. You do see the peaks and valleys, which is an interesting data-driven set trend. It is something that is not emotionally driven, though. It's different from having people that are in it in the trenches day to day. You guys that are watching, those that don't watch this later, that are out in New York, major other cities, HLC. Again, welcome everybody. Mimosa in the morning. I decided to go with a monster mimosa because I feel like, why not? I feel like the world sometimes you just need a gigantic, like literally, you guys know how big my head is. This is huge. Trend that's going on. So I think it's an important like the world sometimes there we go. Awesome. It's an important thing to look at and say, hey, the micro issues and the macro issues. And the micro issues right now, and I'm not diminishing the issues, the micro issues are saying like, hey, what's happening in this hour, what's happening in this minute, what's happening in this day. This is straight up Manny's mimosa. Like it's huge. Like a big again, Rip Manny's, the good old days. I could get that for like 50 cents. And then you drop a 20 down on the bar. And then you just keep getting more for free, if y'all know what I'm talking about. So, again, talking about the micro and macro issues. The micro, we're talking about, hey, what's happening to me right now? What is happening to Josh? What is happening to this me as a person right now in this world? What is happening to my neighbors, my immediate family, things in this time? That's our micro issues. The macro issues we're talking about as well, or like micro time, what was happening, George Floyd's death, and that's why she is close. Yeah, for sure. It's true. It's economics. You got to have a little bit. It was good while it lasted, though, for Manny's. So it was. We're talking about the micro. I'm dealing with like what is happening at the protest, what people are feeling and going through on a day-to-day issue, day-to-day trend. What is happening right now? Then you talk about the macro issue, and you're talking about a macro over time. What has happened from 1900 to 1930s, 1960s, 1990s, 2020 now. So we're talking about like every 30 years. What is the trend been? And you obviously have a general overall upward trend, but a lot of what we talk about is masked with institutional and systemic racism. You're dealing with, you feel like you make strides, which is good, and then you let off the gas pedal, and all of a sudden you have somebody else that pops through. Just, for example, in the immediate short term, we're talking about, transgender rights in healthcare discrimination has been taken out of the ACA, taken away from. That was taken away on the anniversary of the Pulse Massacre nightclub shooting. You have people that come through that are consistently going to try and put everyone else down, put the upward trend, and try and put a stop on it. The data speaks to that trend that drops. We don't have it. People aren't going to have it. We're not going to sit down and take it. The trend is going to go back up, and it's going to be driven by the people. It's not driven by corporations. It's not driven by the people at the top. It's grassroots. It's driven by us, by the community, Black Lives Matter, by allies, as well as people that are in the trenches and fighting, and people that have to deal with it day to day. So it's an interesting long-term trend topic to talk about. I think it's something that could be brought up with your friends. Discuss it, or mull it around a little bit. We're going to get into some more specifics on the micro issue. We talked to Darnell today. We talk about representation and what happens when people are being marginalized in certain subsects of, for example, wrestling, or racial discrimination, and sexual orientation discrimination. Oh man, no pandemic product of the week this week. I will say it's been interesting to see what companies end up being on the side of good and right versus the other ones that are not necessarily representing themselves the best. Just for example, CrossFit and Greg Glassman, the creator of CrossFit, said some really, really racist and fucked up, things to his community, to his box owners, to on social media through Instagram. He is a big Trumpian, a Trumple thin skin, and the backlash has come out of there. So I do want to give a shout out to so Darnell, who was my roommate for a long time. We had another roommate named Chad, really awesome dude. They opened a CrossFit box called CrossFit Solace years ago now. I think it's probably gone 6 or 7 years or so. Ownership's changed hands. Things have changed about it. They've definitely had a history of, identifying and finding who they are as a business. But I will say that the entire time I've known them and have been there, there's been pretty across the board good representation of the LGBTQ community, of people of color, of women, from being coaches to actual clients and people that train there. I've seen people that have met there that are transgender, become married, now they have kids, and they, I think, in good business fashion and also doing the right thing, have now cut ties. From the last post I saw from them, have cut ties with CrossFit and are going to create a more inclusive community and throw it out there. So that's my little thing I'm pushing out there for you guys. Just saying some good stuff that's happening, that other people or businesses are standing up and taking notice and saying no. There are some lists out there of businesses that are not. I would recommend and just say, hey, I'm not going to shop there anymore personally. I'm not going to give my money to people that are going to continue the trend of wanting to keep others down. And I don't think there's a time for us to ever represent and support people like that. So, especially business like that. The money is what they listen to. So I'm going to give a little shout out now. Darnell, we're going to have him come on shortly. Darnell, I don't know if you can see it. I think on the bottom under the comments, there's a... actually, no, I can request you. I'll request you, and don't even worry about it. Oh, I see it right there. Cool. I'm going to give you a little run up first, and then kind of come out. So Darnell, if you guys, most of you on here already know Darnell. For those that are going to watch it later, don't know Darnell. Darnell Mitchell has been one of my friends for the last decade. We've known each other for a very long time. He was my first roommate, like actual roommate that I wasn't like involved with romantically or married to. And a really, really good time. We had a lot of good memories together. Darnell used to be the #1 men's personal shopper and salesman at J. Crew when J. Crew dissolved. He's worked over Bloomingdale's as personal shopping, and he dressed me for my wedding. He's dressed everybody we know for weddings wonderfully. Sweet guy that you don't want to cross because can throw shade with the best of them. Currently works at Suit Supply and I'll have him talk about his podcasts and stuff that are going on when he gets in here. But like no joke, no one knows more about box office, film, knows more about WWE, wrestling, and nerd culture than Darnell. So I got to give him a big old shout out for that. Helped him open my eyes and learn a lot from him when we lived together. So I'm going to have him come on now, and we're going to get going. Darnell up in here. Yeah, I think Manny's. Wish it was still open, but not.
Oh, it's me. Hi.
Fix mine and turn my sound up here so I can hear you better. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I didn't realize I had the volume all the way down. I was like, what is happening?
I also feel very misleading considering like I work in suiting and I'm wearing a fucking wrestling t-shirt, which is my friend Nick's t-shirt, which you should get, Nick Stapp. And my haircut is a mess, so I'm so sorry, people.
Oh,
it's
man,
all an illusion.
I feel you, man. Like, it's the haircut thing and all this stuff. Like I don't need to go out there and protest for my right to haircut because, like, that's the stupidest thing ever. But, like, no joke. Like, people every week, they're like, man, you're just getting grayer and grayer. And, like, this is just, like...
Just let it rock.
Just going. I was like, maybe I'll just let it grow and just see what happens. Maybe I could do, like, Jeremy circa 3 years ago where he has... the long locks.
Oh, that like wavy, like it was nice. It was very nice.
It gets crazy. There we go. It gets like, you know my hair. It's like it gets crazy wavy and curly, and like when it gets a little longer, which is weird, but we rock it.
It's the Native American in you.
It is the Native. It's my
that curliness.
That's what my grandma always would say. Because my great grandmother was still on. Living on the reservation in Oklahoma in Tahlequah, where the Cherokee Nation is located, and like she'll joke, she'd be like, "You got that Native American in you, Joshua," and my brother has like the Irish part of our family heritage. He's just white and will burn.
He's very white. He's very white.
Oh yeah,
he's very nice.
So funny because we'll stand next to each
very
other
white.
Like, so yeah, no, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I know we've had a lot of back and forth. I would apologize to anyone ahead of time for some reason. My phone hates Instagram, so we'll see if this is successful for 40 minutes. But yeah, so I'm glad that we could finally do it and have a little chat, and hopefully people like it. So yeah.
Well, I want to say before we start, I know some of the topics and things we're going to talk about today are not the most fun or like happy topics and things that it's just like, hey, let's talk about fun stuff. And I want to say ahead of time, thank you for coming on and talking about this with me and with our viewers. I also want to say that I am a fan, or not a fan, an advocate of understanding that, like, hey, just because you are a Black man, you don't have to explain this over and over and over again to everybody. So I do want to appreciate and say thank you for taking your time and coming on here. And I want to recognize that.
Of course, anything for my buddy.
Blessing of you coming out to be able to do this. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah, of course. I think that it is the choice of every single person of color or black person to make the decision as to what they feel comfortable talking about. Like, it isn't the job of black people to educate other people. You know, we're literally we're Instagramming, right? We're on a little computer on our phones. Like,
yeah.
you have a computer, you can look up information, you can educate yourself. So yeah, but I make a conscious choice, especially for my friends and people who I love. It's like, hey, like, the world isn't always cookie cutter, and it's okay to have hard conversations. Because what's the fucking point? Can I curse? Is that all right?
Oh yeah, dude.
Um, but yeah, what's the point of and having a friendship if you can't have like uncomfortable conversations?
Yeah, agreed, agreed. I think the honesty and the ability to ask the hard questions and be able to listen attentively is important, and try not to like let the ego and the emotion necessarily always override the defensiveness, especially for
We're
um,
all learning every day, man. Like, it's all right. It's okay to
yeah,
say, you know what, I don't know anything about this, or I fucked up on this. I do it all the time because I fuck up every day. So like, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Stop
yeah,
being so prideful. Educate yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Learning it. It's I think I'm not sure if you shared it. It was somebody in our friend group, and it might have been you that shared it. And it's like it was a little just meme. It was basically it's like, hey, let me explain to you and tell you, why I think this is what you're saying is racist and or wrong. And the person listening said, well, wouldn't that make me a hypocrite if I change my mind? And it's like, no, that just makes you a good person for listening and actually saying, hey, I was wrong before. Let me change and move forward. And I think a lot of people have problems with trying to speak with their ego too much and say, oh, well, I can't be wrong because I can't change my point of view. And it's like, no, we're not gonna
Which is
hate you. It's okay.
which is crazy. That's not even how it worked in school. Like, in school, you learned something new and then you applied it. Like, so why
Yeah.
wouldn't that work in real life? Why can't you? We're all a little hypocritical in some way. We all, our ethics sort of get a little bit wavy sometimes, but like, I don't ever see something wrong with someone saying, "Hey, you know what? That information that I thought I knew, I didn't know, and now I know some new stuff. So now let's move forward." Because that's what being a
Yeah,
grown up is.
absolutely.
Fuck,
Well, I
that's
want
what
to
being
talk
a
to you about
child is.
seriously, like, do we ever really grow up? Like,
Yeah,
we just kind of learn more and get older and have more aches and pains.
and get more gray hair.
For reals, though, totally for real. Well, so I wanted to talk about and ask you. So June is Pride Month.
Hmm.
Um, I really wish I was back in the city and wish everything was better, back to normal for the parade, and to be able to go out and celebrate for reals. But I think there is a lot. Not I think of there is a lot of history derived in the LGBTQIA community um, around the celebration of Pride Month or celebration of the hardships and struggles that have like happened. And I know that you've been sharing, and I appreciate it. As a cis heterosexual male, I appreciate the information that you're just giving and sharing out on Facebook, a person a day, about hard chargers, about like people that really stood up and spoke out and really um, changed the world for better, and especially for the community. Is there anybody that you would love to talk about or share? I would love to hear about some game changers in the LGBTQ. Mimosa burp. Sorry, it starts to happen once I
Sexy.
go. Once I go, I gotta like.
Very sexy.
As the show goes on, it just gets worse with all the bubblies, especially the size of the mimosa. But
I'm
would love
not
to hear about.
drinking.
We will.
I know.
One day I'm gonna come over. We're just gonna hang out and we're gonna switch that up and I'm gonna come back.
Exactly.
So please, we would love to hear something about the things that are meaningful and matter to you, or somebody or people that have like maybe not widespread known that we can make known through this venue. So
I think, sorry, I'm like also working at the same time.
multitasking makes
I,
that money.
I'm a busy motherfucker. I'm just so fucking popular. I think I think one of the things that is really, really important about Pride is that people kind of think it is Pride isn't it is it's a celebration of being like queer and like being open and being happy, but it's a parade and a movement and a month that means so much more. I think for me, one of the most important things that a lot of people forget, a lot of queer people forget, and then people who are straight, but this was started by trans women. There are entire most of what we've done in our lives, most of what like we've advanced as a society have been on the backs of Black women, the backs of Black women and the backs of Black trans women. When it comes to the African American history, Black women were out there routinely doing everything they could to help with the advancement of African Americans. And the same thing goes for Pride Month. Marsha P. Johnson is a Black trans woman who is the person that threw the first brick at Stonewall, and I think that there is a lot of people who are not aware of our history. The trans community does not get enough love and joy and appreciation for what they've done for us because they've always put themselves first in line, like first in front of us to defend the rights of queer people. So I think for people to like realize that, hey, you can't necessarily be mad at these riots or these protests that are going on and then say happy Pride in the same sentence because Pride was started as a riot. It lasted for several days. Like this is how things change in our community. This is how things change in our society. Um, Unfortunately, like that's the way it is. But I think for me, I'm 34. There's not a lot of stuff that even I know about the queer community. I need to learn and I need to grow and I need to educate myself every day. So that's why I made the choice to do the once a day, a different person. And 90% of the time, they're people who I don't even know. Like, and I think that's even better because I'm learning, you're learning, we're all learning.
Yeah.
What's the problem? What's the negative in that? There is no negative in that. I just think that we need to also, it's the same, there's a lot of correlation between queer history and African American history because we forget that it is so recent. People forget that I wasn't able to get married until like 6 years ago.
It's
Like,
crazy.
it's crazy. I wasn't able to, have a lot of the same rights until just a couple of years ago. Obama had his issues, but Obama did roll out a lot of stuff that was really supportive for the queer community. And I think that people have this kind of idea of out of sight, out of mind. Everything has been advancing so quickly, and a lot of our advancement has been in the past couple of years
Yeah.
because we're still trying to get the same rights as other people.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm really excited to do the Facebook one person a day because I always want to learn more about my history. I think it's really good to learn about your history. If you know about your history, then you know where you need to go.
Hmm.
And
So true.
I'm not like I think I'm cool, but like I'm not cool enough to know all of this shit. So like I learn, I grow, you grow, I grow, we all grow.
It's true. I mean, adding that little bit of knowledge never hurts. I mean, knowledge is
Yeah.
power, understanding, and just like you said, like you got to know where you came from and where you were before, so you can move forward. I think that's a smart takeaway from this, and I think there's a lot of truth in that, especially right now. Pivoting a little bit and talking about um, the overwhelming right now the backlash against and the push against specifically Confederate monuments that has been going on and the Confederate flag. I mean, talking NASCAR. NASCAR has just outlawed it and banned it. The United States Marine Corps finally just banned it on all bases. No Confederate flag.
You lost. Like, why
I
would you want the flag of a loser? Like, I hate
I
to put it
don't
so
get it.
simple that way, but they lost. And they were around for like 4 years. Like,
I that's
Poke
I literally yes.
like Pokemon Go has almost been around as long as that. Like, WCW lasted longer than the Confederacy. I don't understand the fascination of it. And I don't there is I can't understand that thought process of saying to myself, hey, this flag means this. It doesn't mean anything about slavery. When you have all these people of color and all of these, like, people who, this is literally what they do, researchers who are saying it was mainly about slavery, telling you this, and your response to that is, no, I really like my ugly flag. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, I agree. I think that going back to what you said about, you need to know your history. And it's like a lot of people are uninformed and uneducated on what the Confederate flag really is. that they didn't even realize, like, hey, this is the Virginia battle colors. It's not even actual the Confederate flag. That at the same time, most of these monuments that are put up were erected in the 1950s and 1960s during the civil rights movement to oppress and put down people of color, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically the African American community, African community, to say, hey, we're just going to put this out here just to remind you. And it's not, it wasn't erected back in the day for that. And it was done by these groups like the Daughters of the Confederacy, which are literally have just a bunch of white women funded money and putting up.
It's weird.
It's the weirdest thing. And if you look at the
It's really
dates that are
weird.
put up, it's like, well, learn the history and understand your argument of why you want this to be a thing. And then if you are informed and educated, like you're talking about, it's like maybe you're more understanding to maybe change your mind on it, and or say, hey, I understand that even though this means something to me, that the implications of it, and I'm going to take it down because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You
It's
know, it's
it,
like,
it it corresponds to what we said earlier. It's hey, you learn new information and you grow from there. And I think that 99% of us are not nearly as informed about stuff as we think that we are. It's the same Martin Luther King quotes that happen all the time. Martin Luther King would be actually pretty chill with what's happening right now.
yeah,
Like
oh yeah,
it's this idea that he was Martin Luther King was a criminal, like was arrested dozens of times. Like, did y'all not read the Birmingham letter? Like, he fucking hated like white moderates. He totally got why people were violent. He didn't necessarily encourage it, but he understood, hey, this is what happens when this happens. And we kind of whitewashed him into this perfect Professor Xavier, like everything is good, nonviolent, and that's literally not who he was.
yeah,
And even if your idea is hey, Martin Luther King went about this peaceful, which I don't know what peaceful is because cops were still, sticking dogs on the protesters and whatnot because it wasn't peaceful for them because it was
no,
violent for them. But it's, you know, I don't know. I just think people are really, really uninformed about all of this information. But you have a computer right in front of you, and I just don't understand the refusal to learn about what you're talking about.
yep. Well, I think there's a level of our society now that is an instant gratification society where we are
Very
like,
much so.
I'm going to read the title of this. I'm not actually going to read what's in the article. I'm just going to share it because I see the title. We're clickbait. We want to see
Clickbait.
something.
Yep.
We want to see it in 2 minutes. Like, I think I read a article the other day, and it was talking about Twitter is thinking about, I'm pretty sure it's Twitter, I would quote Twitter, Instagram, that you can't share an article unless you read it. And I think it's, you have to actually click through first, spend a certain amount of time in that
That's
article,
really smart.
and then you can be able to share the actual article. You can't just immediately share it, which I thought was interesting, forcing people to become educated and informed on what they're actually sharing versus sharing. I've seen so many people just share different websites or links to articles and things, and they make a point about it and they're talking about it. Yes, thank you, Chelsea. It's on Twitter, and that the topic and the point they're trying to make in their comments is not even what the article is about because they're just referencing the title of it. And I think we're just
Mm-hmm.
wanting instant gratification. Nobody wants to do their due diligence and research on stuff because it takes 5 minutes. It takes too long to Google something to become informed because the people you're trying to argue against or inform, it's like, it's almost like you're going to spend all day to become informed to, tell my race is
How
that person I
how
know.
often are you on Twitter?
Very little. I almost don't.
Very little.
I just link it to my Instagram. So if I share something on Instagram, it goes over to Twitter. I don't really get on there
I
ever.
I'm on Twitter way too often. Literally all the
I mean,
time.
you live tweet things. It's crazy. Like when you're watching
Yeah,
shows, wrestling, and
that's how you get your followers. But I make sure I have something interesting to say, or I think so. But like Twitter has also been like kind of even though I fucking hate Jack, but it's been kind of super influential for what's going on right now because it's weird when I go to Facebook and I see something and it's an article from your racist friend from high school that has a sunset picture. We got it. You're
yeah.
like a tracker hack.
Mm-hmm.
But it's information that's old. It's information that's not accurate compared to Twitter where everything like really is live. Like you hear something and then it's immediately debunked. Like it doesn't really have a lot of that time to circulate all of that negativity and all of that incorrect information. So Twitter, it's it's really really weird because it's on Facebook. I'm not saying anyone talking about the protests, but there's still thousands of people every day going outside the protests that you don't see on on the national news. You don't see on Facebook, but you see on Twitter every single hour.
Yeah.
Uh, Twitter has really really been like super helpful in getting like a lot of the correct information out there and debunking a lot of these rumors and this guy was attacked and he was killed and it's like nah, that motherfucker was tweeting 5 seconds later, like
Yeah.
let's he's good, and it wasn't his store, but oh, Tommy Royce is here. I love Tommy. Tommy is
Give
George's
Tommy a wave.
friend uh from London.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
I love our London friends across the pond
Oh,
for joining us.
he's so nice. But yeah, more of the story, I fucking love Twitter.
Well, it's interesting because I wanted to ask you because I know you are probably my only friend that I know that is consistently on Twitter and is on top of things. I know that I've seen you immediately be like, nope, here's some actual information. No, this is happening live. This is what's going on. And how do you think that's driving the protest cultures, if I could call it a culture or whatever's happening, because we're more informed. You can connect to a base sooner. You can share information in a way that you couldn't do 20, 30 years ago. Like what do you, oh, there you go, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, we love Nick. I give Nick a wave. How
I
is
gave
that
you a real life
driving?
wave.
Yeah, we'll give both. Yay. Driving this information. I know from the Hong Kong protests and how they're using certain social media platforms or private messaging platforms like Signal and WhatsApp and other things. And in America, we're using Twitter a lot to put out information, just like you were talking about. How do you think that is driving the ability for people to protest and to gather and create a movement?
I think it's making it considerably easier. For example, the other day, a young lady, her name is Rachel. She does a really big podcast called WrestleSplania. And it's a great name, but like she was out with MV, who is my business partner for Uncanny Attractions, the company that I help run with Lynn as well. But they knew exactly where police were. They knew which bands police, because police go in the protest with you, and they do
Right.
instigate. They change their color band every day,
Yeah.
like, and we're able to like literally tweet out, and I can retweet, yo, they're wearing orange, so people know what to look out for.
Yeah.
Like I was able to tell my friend, hey, there's a cop car on fire at 14th Street. I know you're at 10th Street. I want to make sure you know, and I tweeted that to him. I think it's allowing us to be a little bit more organized, because even you can curate private lists and stuff like that. But I think it's making us also aware that every little bit that we do, every little tweet that we do, every little bit of communication that we do is super, super helpful. And it can get to so many people right then, right there, and you know what to do.
Yeah.
I think it's the way of the future. I honestly think Twitter is incredible, but it's the way of the future of like having that constant like interaction with one another and being able to support each other super, super easily. It's great.
Yeah.
It'd
I
be
mean,
great if we didn't have to protest, but alas.
absolutely. Yeah. It's sad that you have to do these things, but it's good that people have these platforms to be able to express themselves and to communicate and get better at everything that we're doing, which is great. I mean, so going to Twitter as well, we're talking about we're about halfway in the show now, so I do want to have a good chunk of time because I love talking to you about wrestling, and I love talking about the community.
I'm shocked my Instagram has worked well so far. Like
Honestly,
literally shocked.
I'm gonna knock on the wood I have here just to like.
I shouldn't have said anything. I
um,
fucked it up.
it's okay. It'll tank and then we'll come back on, but we'll be good. We'll keep it going. So I got to see on Halloween Uncanny Attractions when you guys put on your show. It was amazing. I would love to talk to us about Uncanny Attractions, and then I want to talk to you about representation in the larger groups. We're talking about like the independent groups, WWE, NXT, Sassy Suit Guy. Like, how do you feel what you're working on fits into the larger wrestling world? and is this representation being like spread out? I guess I have a bunch of questions for you on this. So tell us about Uncanny Attractions, and we'll kind of go from there.
So, Uncanny Attractions is the creation of Michael Young, MV Young. He was a personal trainer and a wrestler, and he was talking to Lynn Friley. Lynn is one of the original producers of Coachella. She's done Super Bowl shows, like she's done it all.
Wow.
Like she's like a big deal. And they thought of a show together, and then they asked me to be a part of it. As a person who loves wrestling, I was overjoyed. So I run all over the social media. I help book the shows. I am a producer of the show. Our our company is based out of the House Yes in Brooklyn. Our main thing is that Michael is an openly pansexual wrestler. Len is a queer woman. I am a queer person of color. You I believe that we are the only company that is run by multiple queer people. And I believe I am the only, I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. The only full-time queer black promoter in independent wrestling, period. Which is fucking sad because it's 2020. But our idea is that wrestling is fun and enjoyable, and a lot of times wrestling doesn't represent what the real world looks like, because we should have women in every single wrestling match. We should have queer people in every wrestling match. We should have people of color all the time. It's fucking wrestling. Let's have a drag show. Like
Yeah,
let's do whatever we want, and let's draw in all of these casual people and these hardcore wrestling fans. And I think we do it really, really well because we're here in New York City. Hi, Sean. We're here in New York City, and I think that anything that you're doing in New York City should represent what New York City looks like. So that's
absolutely.
kind of uh, what we're hoping for. We're hoping to have a safe space for wrestlers. A lot of wrestlers really love working for us, which is pretty cool. Uh, it's always a little humbling when people ask us to do stuff or they really, really want to be, a part of the Uncanny's locker room because we've had nothing but positive things come out of like we try to take care of people. We try to make sure everyone's okay. We're very particular about who we have in our shows because I don't want our show to look like every other independent wrestling show because what's the fucking
Absolutely.
point? We're unique and we actually do we make sure that that's a big focus of us is being unique and being different because we want to be the same. It's boring.
Absolutely. I mean, seeing it firsthand and being, you know, it was not my first wrestling show I saw was like a WCW one way back in the
It was
day.
your first independent wrestling show though, right?
My first independent wrestling show. It was my first one where I got to be that close and be into it. And honestly, like I couldn't speak for like 2 days after because I lost my voice from like
Oh, you
yelling and
did.
screaming. Oh, I was just like, yes. I was like, da, da, da. Like just everything. It was amazing. It was such a good show. I think you guys do such a great job of yes creating representation in every match, from women to queer to it just everybody. And it was like there was no pizzazz lost. And I think something that is lost in a lot of people's minds that aren't open to this, it's like they're like, oh, it's just not going to be as good because it's not like a
Oh,
bunch of jacked white dudes you slamming each other. And it's like, no, it's
it's
better.
better.
You gain more. And it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was. I would love to do it
Thank
again.
you.
I mean, it was from seeing that. Like, I have no idea how even to start that, but like, it made me, and I still talk about it now. This was last Halloween. I was like, if I had the opportunity to wrestle or like get out there and like find a group and do something, it's like I would do it. I want to do that because that's a lot of
I
fun.
think you'd be really
Like,
good at it too.
you be my manager. Like, I would definitely do it. It's just
I'd actually wear a suit and not a t-shirt.
no, for sure. Like I'll wrestle in a suit. We'll put some like stretchy parts and like the things and maybe sassy suit guys suit dude.
There have been wrestlers who have wrestled in suits, so it is possible. We can get you some really lightweight fabric. I'm so
I mean,
shiny. I feel like I put Vaseline on. I'm
no,
like
you look
like
beautiful. You
shining
look great,
bright like a diamond.
like a diamond. No, you're looking good. You're looking fresh. I still loving the facial hair.
Oh,
Rocking it.
it's yeah, it's I had to
Best.
delete that one picture when I like shaved it all off because like it got on NBA Twitter and like I was like I don't have the energy for this. I'm not going viral for this.
Yeah, you're like, I
Like,
want something different. Like,
not at all. Ah, look at
who's the
Elise.
heel?
Elise with her wrestling terminology.
I know she knows it. I
She
tell everybody
knows.
what a heel is. What's a heel?
A heel is a bad guy. A face would be the good guy, or a baby face is what you would call a good guy. So John Cena is a baby face. Who was a person that an average person would know as a heel? I don't know. Mankind is a heel.
Yeah, that's good. I
That's the
love
way to think of
mankind.
it.
Um, no, I love that. So how do you view some things I've been thinking about, and I was wondering, being a casual wrestling fan, knowing more than the average person from living with you, from being used to watching it as a kid. Very excited. I do enjoy wrestling.
Lauren
Hey,
actually is the
Lauren.
person who does our posters and all of our graphics for Uncanny Attractions. She's
Oh,
also
that's
a really, really incredible dear friend. It was just her birthday last week. Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday. Happy birthday, Lauren.
She got a
Here's to the mimosa.
really she got a really cool My Chemical Romance leather jacket for her birthday, which is
You
pretty
do love
cool.
My Chemical Romance.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, anything. So I've been wondering, and this is something that I've been looking into, from Maddie showing me stuff from other people, different people that are something that it didn't shock me, but it also like was interesting to see that, WWE has moved a lot of their stuff from NXT to other stuff down to Florida. They
Yeah.
have they have moved down there a lot. Florida opens up sooner than other places.
Their performance center is also in Florida. So where they train, any person that gets hired for WWE, you automatically go to Florida. That's what a lot of wrestlers live in Florida because there's no state tax or there's no like something to
no
do with
state tax.
homes or something like. So everyone
Yeah,
just buys a home down there.
yeah, much cheaper, much cheaper. But
Much
it's
cheaper.
interesting to see major donors, and they've talked about it before. Vince McMahon, the McMahon family are huge donors to Donald Trump.
Mm.
And I know that we've personally talked about it before, is how much does Vince McMahon really run the day-to-day operations versus having Triple H run a lot of things that are going on. He's married to Stephanie McMahon, correct me if I'm wrong, Vince McMahon's daughter,
Hmm.
and it looks like there's a little bit of a trend to kind of like become more open and more accessible with the women's belt, with having more representation from like Asuka, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Hmm.
coming over from New Japan and now fighting in the WWE and having this representation of women. And where do you think the next step is from that? And do you think that it's a hindrance for having Vince McMahon being such a Trump supporter and really like pushing money towards, I don't know if you shared or somebody else did, like it's pushing to open up and have wrestling as an essential business so they can continue to have shows and bring people in. And, we have COVID-19 going on. Florida's seeing spikes in. Just like,
It's
what do you think?
I think that's also a really, really hard conversation because I think WWE is they're a business run by white billionaires who their idea is to make more money. One of the things I did find very interesting is that once WWE did push for this, they weren't the only wrestling company that went there then. It's like there were other companies that realized like, oh, WWE did this, that means I could do it.
Yeah.
I try not to get so worked up about the Trump relationship because this is a time where I'm 100%, hypocritical. Because what's that phrase? It's like there's no ethics in capitalism or something like that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's like
There's no like ethical consumption of something. I don't know.
yeah.
Someone knows what I'm saying, but
We know.
like
Somebody posted up. If you know what Darnell's saying, put it in the comment section.
no one can watch professional wrestling on a mainstream like medium without being a hypocrite. Not a single person can because WWE donates to Donald Trump, AEW donates to Donald Trump, Ring of Honor is owned by Sinclair, which is a very, very right-wing conservative company. Um, I think you have to figure out what's good for you. I will never tell anyone to illegally stream anything so that they're not giving money to these companies. I would never say that. But
Share them
um,
happiness, folks.
I want them to do I equate it to like Disney. I want Disney to have queer characters in their stories so bad, but at the same time, I'm a little bit more apt to just then support these other smaller companies that are already doing it.
Yeah.
Um, I I struggle a lot. I have a lot of friends who work for AEW. I have a lot of friends who work for WWE, and I just wish them all the best. But like, I try my best to separate the two of them. Because I'm also, well, we're using an iPhone that was honestly probably made by a child. Uh, so
Yeah.
let's be like let's be honest here. So I think you pick and choose. I do make a conscious effort to put whatever little money I do have into independent wrestling and buying independent wrestling shows and going on IWTV, which everyone should have if you like wrestling. Um, I'd rather put my money into that than putting it to WWE or AEW. Anything run by a billionaire, you don't need my money. Fuck it.
So true. So true.
Like we're good.
Yeah.
But I think that mainstream wrestling in general has definitely come strides. AEW has Sonny Kiss, who I love. Sonny. Sonny is, I've known him from Capital Wrestling, and obviously he's worked for Uncanny Attractions. They have Nyla Rose, the first mainstream trans, and she's a woman of color. She's Black and Native American, and she was a former champion. Uh, WWE, weirdly enough, it's weird that no one talks about it, but their most dominant wrestler for over a year was a queer biracial woman, in Shayna Baszler,
Oh, interesting.
the
Yeah.
MMA fighter, and no one talks about it. But like
Wow.
those little things are huge steps in mainstream wrestling. But I also understand it's mainstream wrestling, and I could probably get, not probably, I can definitely get everything that I want in wrestling from the independents,
Yeah.
not worry about what they're doing.
True. It's nice to hear that there are companies like Uncanny Attraction and other independent or smaller showcase wrestling that are standing up for what's right and creating a community of inclusivity. And I
Hmm.
know that you talked about the actual wrestlers themselves, generally years after year, going to WrestleMania or other things and meeting people in person and being, understanding where these wrestlers are coming from and being generally pretty good people from what I've understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends what
It
you mean.
depends. Yeah.
um,
Uh, yeah.
but it's interesting to see the people that are um, taking a stand on their social medias and using their platforms to say, hey, this is what I represent and this is what I'm doing going forward, versus some even times worrying about backlash from the company that they work for. Um, uh,
Which is actually weird because WWE used to be really, really on their social media about what they would post, and now I don't think they care that much
yeah,
because a lot of wrestlers have posted about Black Lives Matter.
yeah,
Randy Orton posted about Black Lives Matter, and that dude is a Trump supporter. Like, I was like, Randy, what the fuck is happening? It's yeah, there a lot of people like even especially like people are tweeting about defund the police and a lot of other things, which we should absolutely defund the police. A lot of other things. Defund doesn't mean completely abolish, even though I kind of think we should abolish them. But there's there a lot of these major companies are allowing a lot of these wrestlers with these huge platforms to be able to talk about these things, and I think
yeah.
that what's the point of having a platform if you don't use it for something?
Agreed. I mean, if you have 120,000, a million followers, it's like that's an easy way to get out there and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." Hello, who do we got
That's
going?
Dev
Tell me.
that's Devin Monroe. Devin Monroe is an incredible wrestler based out of the Midwest. He is a beautiful what's your gimmick name? Is it sex black sexcellence is what his gimmick name is, which is great.
He's up for that.
Um, but yeah, he was also going to be in a part of our Uncanny show. But like he's a perfect example of where wrestling is nowadays. Him being black and queer and openly proud and it being a part of his gimmick and him living it. Like that's not something that we could have done 10 years ago, and that's
Yeah,
not because of WWE or AEW or TNA or whatever. That's because of the love of the independent wrestling community and the way that we've kind of all grown together and like realized that like hey, we need more people out there. We need something different. Like, I got it. You're a straight white guy in tights. That's great. Uh,
Yeah,
but I need a little bit more. And
yeah.
Devin is amazing. I love Devin.
Well, we love Devin. Hey,
Devon.
Devin, thanks for joining us on the show and being
Even
in.
though I think I totally pronounced your name wrong just now. I think he pronounces it very fancy, like a lot fancier than how I was doing, but whatever.
Yeah. Oh, Rich is in here. Hey, Rich. Rich just had his birthday the other day. Saying happy
Yes.
birthday to Rich. Um, yeah, so it's interesting to hear with, sorry, I lost my train of thought, with the independent communities, with Uncanny Attraction, and like you said, like I think WWE as well is gotten to a point where they're like, just we're getting more traction with our stars for letting them be who they are versus trying to have to always be these pretend figures like they did back in the day and pretend that all this stuff is going on. So it's a I actually just watched the man, what is it? Fighting with My Family.
It's great. It has
So
no
good.
reason to be that good.
It really doesn't, but it is so good. Florence
It's
Pugh as
really
well.
good.
It's just like I fucking
She's
love
a
her.
she's really fucking good. She's Midsummer is like I was like, man, that girl's going through a lot of fucking emotions.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's really fucking good.
yeah, yeah. Definitely Fighting with Your Family. I think it does a really good job of talking about the WWE compounds you're talking about where they do their I don't know the correct name of it. You talked about it.
PC Performance Center.
Yes, exactly that. It was very interesting, and it was like, wow, this is like it's an interesting look on the inside of things that happen from a like obviously a movie perspective, but I mean you got Cersei in there, you got Lena Headey, you've got it's a good cast and it's a really good movie. So Fighting with My Family, I would definitely watch that one. So coming back around, we talked about just briefly about defunding the police, and I think it's an important thing to talk about. I've only heard how do I say this? The echo chamber that I've created in my social media group, because I
Yes.
clearly know that most of my friends agree with me. If you don't agree with me, I don't got time for you. If you're a flat earther or whatever, it's like, I'm just going to silence and mute you because I don't need that in my circle of what I believe. I know what I believe. And I get my news from multiple sources worldwide, from different places, and I fact check and I take the time to do that. But defunding the police is something I feel like in a lot of communities and circles does not come up enough. And it's like, I think you said it really well. Defunding the police does not mean abolishing and getting rid of law enforcement.
It we very easily and happily say defund something if it deals with Planned Parenthood, but we don't say it when something is because that's the whole thing about all these all lives matter, right? So if all
Yep,
lives matter and we're killing a child, wouldn't you then want to use that same energy towards police officers if they're killing people?
absolutely.
Um, because even that's the misconception about Black Lives Matter is like, yes, the primary thing is, you know, black people are disproportionately, killed more than white people uh, by the police, but like we're fighting for all of us. Like there shouldn't be police brutality. There shouldn't be police murdering each other. And then what defund the police means, at least what it means for me, is that I don't think that a police officer who's had 6 months of training should be the first person to be going to a house for, someone's son who is mentally ill that is having an outburst. Because that police officer does not know the proper way to handle that situation.
Absolutely.
That's why we have social workers and caseworkers. These are the people who we should be sending out for and putting more money into that. I think that it should be a very, very specific reason why you were calling the police for a very, very specific thing so that we can allocate all of those needs for simply that. Simply that. I, why aren't we putting more, money into rehab and actually rehabilitating people instead of just putting them in jail? There's so many dumb things that we're doing that really makes no sense logistically and is clearly not helping anyone. So if something is not working, let's try to change it a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, New York Police Department has $6 billion a year.
Insane. It's insane.
Insane. But we defund and we take away money from the NTA all the time. We take away money from education all the time. We take away money from housing all the time. We take away money for so many things all the time. But man, NYPD is out here in fucking riot gear. Why are they in riot gear? Why are we spending, why can't, trans people were cut from the military spending because of the home warrants and surgeries they might be going to. And I believe the number was between $2 to $8 million. And they were like, you need to cut that. It's bullshit, but you know how much we give in Viagra a year to the military? Viagra. $41 million. Why is that not cut? Like, what is this excessive spending that we're doing? We're not giving it back to our communities. Actually, someone made a really, really great. Oh, it was AOC, who I love. It's okay, Henry. I forgive you. Um, AOC said, someone was like, what does it look like when you don't have a police force? And she said, it looks like a suburb.
Yeah.
Because suburbs have they have groups of people together. They have communities that look out for the neighborhood. They have so many things put in together to make sure that everyone like thrives in their area. And if we did that everywhere, just think of the big difference. Camden, New Jersey defunded the police, and their crime rate lowered 42%.
Insane.
Lowered.
It's crazy. I think Vice years back did an actual report on Camden before they
Did I
defunded,
need
and
to check that out?
it was very interesting. And I could be misremembering. They definitely did a city in New Jersey, and I think it was Camden, but it talked about how they were using like video cameras and like drones and all sorts of stuff to police, and it wasn't making anything better; it was making it worse. I think this was talking about before it actually happened, so it was quite interesting. I do want to. I don't want to cut us off real quick. We do have, I think, the timer's going to pop up. Instagram Live cuts us off at 1 hour.
Oh, at 1 hour, yeah.
So we have 2 minutes left. But I think the conversation we're having, if you want to stay on longer, I think is important to continue talking about for a little longer.
Sure.
If you are free and available to continue on, I'm just going to stop our Instagram Live now. All the guys that are on and watching, we're just going to start a new Instagram Live so we don't go over time, and we can continue to talk about defunding the police and talking about what that actually means as a community. I think it's an important topic of discussion to have. And Darnell's going to come on back. So thank you, everybody, for watching for this first hour of Mimosas in the Morning. We're going to just leave you now, but we're going to restart the live video.
We'll be right back.
It'll take about 2 minutes, and we're going to come right back, like 2 minutes. Love you guys. All right, we're back. There's Darnell. Let me just get it back on. All right.
Bonjour. Of course, now my Instagram is weird. Hi, Scarlett.
Let's get back on that. Let's keep this train going. I think it's such a good topic of discussion to understand what that actually means from different communities. For people, I mean, you brought up the talking about military spending and how we're spending, was it 10, 15 times the amount of Viagra versus letting, hormone therapies for transgendered individuals. I mean, coming from a military background, being in the Marine Corps, the amount of
Did they really need that much Viagra?
I mean, no.
Like, what was happening?
Viagra, but like, that's just insane. That's the military misuse and spending, saying, hey, for a civilian, a pill of Viagra is $2. In the military, it's $500 for the pill. It's like something you can price gouge because the money can be allocated and spent because their budget is so large. But it's the same exact thing with, I think, defunding the police and talking about, like you said, we're not abolishing and getting rid of police and becoming an anarchist state and letting just whatever happens. In the suburbs, like you talked about, you don't have police just walking around outside. You don't have cop cars.
It's not like they do less crime. Like I've done more drugs and bad shit with white people than anyone else. But it's and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, it's education. Like I had never even thought about the idea until I realized that, oh wait, this is a thing that like happens. This is a thing that like you can do. This is a thing that actually makes a lot of sense. And I think the older and older I get, the more I hate to use the word, but radical leftist I become. And it's that's why someone like Bernie Sanders, who I enjoy, but like I need Bernie Sanders to be more progressive. I he doesn't want to do that, and I'm just sort of like, no, we can do it. This is a normal thing. We can totally do it.
Yeah.
Why is it that we feel that it is okay to spend millions of dollars on things that we don't need, but not put that money back into the education for our kids, not put that money back into communities,
Mm-hmm.
not put that money into the well-being and the health of average Americans? The fact
Yeah.
that something like GoFundMe is the thing that like actually gets people money, especially when they have medical issues or someone dies and they have funeral expenses. The fact that uh, most people are educating themselves from means from the internet because they're not getting that education or they can't afford to get their education from school.
Yeah.
Like these are not normal things.
Yeah.
And we have to stop telling ourselves just because this is the way it is now is the way it needs to be, because that you don't grow that way. Because 40 years ago, I couldn't sit at the same table with you, Josh, and that was the way it was, and that was legal. And we learned, kind of, and we've grown. So why wouldn't we put that aspect to all parts of our world and all parts of the information that we know? We're just growing and we're just learning. And I think like Bernie, I enjoy Bernie bringing a lot of things into the conversation, and I think that for a lot of people, because according to polls that have come out, the amount of people who have changed their thought process about universal health care when they kind of realize, oh, I guess I do deserve health care,
Yeah.
is crazy. Of course you deserve health care. You're a human being. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? Why is your health care tied to your job? Why is it that if you
Bullshit.
can't work, you should die? Like if you
Absolutely.
can't, it makes no sense. And a lot of these things are put into place um, for marginalized groups, for Black and Brown people, to allow them to continue to be at the lower rung that they are, because they know that's where it affects people the most, because they know
Yeah.
what communities it affects the most. And it's really fucked up and it's really shitty. And I just don't understand why we wouldn't want to support, if we were supposed to be patriotic and being American, why wouldn't you want to support all Americans having more?
Agreed. I mean, there's this.
That's being a
It,
patriot, not
it's
just
so
waving
true.
a flag.
Yeah, waving a flag doesn't do shit. Getting out there and supporting your actual neighbors. Everybody. I think on the Bernie Sanders, train here. It's like I was a big Bernie supporter. I've been a big Bernie supporter, and I think you're true. I think Bernie has done his job in
Yep.
notifying, getting people to understand and move to a place. But it's like, as a martial arts coach, as a jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, when I fight and I train people, I want them to be better than I am. My goal is to take you from here and move you here, even though I'm only here, right? It's to make it better. And I think Bernie's done a good job of saying, hey,
Oh,
look at
Nick.
these issues.
Sorry, Nick is in the chat. This is Nick's shirt. It is based off of Taking Back Sunday, which I love. You can get it on ProWrestlingTees.com.
Shout out to Nick.
Shout out to Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Oh, Helena's here. Sorry, it's just like
No, it's good. Any shout outs. I love getting people into the community and getting in.
She works with Progress Wrestling.
Oh wow. There we go. So we've talked about Progress Wrestling. It's an independent group before. in our last hour of the podcast, or I guess, is this a podcast? I don't know what this is. This is like,
It's yeah, it's an audio cast.
yeah, yeah,
Hi.
something. It's fun, but it's also informative. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I get to drink a lot of mimosas, so that's a
I
good part.
cannot believe you downed that entire thing.
I mean, it gets here, it gets going. This is like my Sunday
I always knew you were a
resetting day.
swallower.
It's true. Get it going in. we
um,
don't we don't waste here. We don't waste.
I remember actually once having a conversation with a friend of mine who is conservative, and she, came from money, and so like that's a lot of the way that she thought about things. And I said, well, the difference between the way you and I vote is that it is. I'm always going to vote for what America deems as the lowest person. Malcolm X gave that really famous quote about saying that the black woman is, the lowest on the totem pole. And I think black trans women are the lowest on the totem pole. So the people who vote for that, or the people who talk about that, those are the people I'm going to vote for. But I was telling my friend, because we were talking about who gets certain rights, and she was like, well, I think if you have this problem and this problem, this problem. And I was like, well, I think the major difference between you and I is there are millions of people outside who hate black people, who hate queer people, who think I should die, who think I should be lynched. And guess what? I still think you deserve health care.
Yeah,
I think you're a piece of shit, but I still think you deserve health care because that's being an American and that's being patriotic. You can
absolutely,
think whatever you want from me, but it doesn't change the fact that you're a human being that deserves the same rights as every single other person,
absolutely. I
which is
mean,
a
it's
hard concept
interesting.
for some people.
It's crazy. It's just, I mean, it goes back to as well. Like, I think about this, and I've had discussions this last week about Colin Kaepernick, and it's just like starting a movement and doing something years ahead. We're not even talking about in the macrocosm of like what's going on with racial injustice. We're talking about just him, and him being so thoughtful ahead of time, having discussions with special forces members of the military on how he should do this, to protest in the correct manner, to do all the things that these incredibly bigoted, sexist, racist, generally Republican leaning people are saying you have to protest in this manner and do it this way, going through all those channels and still at the end of the day being like
It not being
crucified
good enough
for
for
it.
you.
It's, yeah, you're still getting, you
So
lost your profession, like,
he can't go to veterans to get information from veterans. He's put millions of dollars back into brown communities, millions of dollars back into brown communities. So he can't do that. We can't protest peacefully. And if there are rioters or looters, Target will be okay. If
yeah,
there are rioters and looters, it's like, well, you can't do it. Then how the fuck do you want people to protest? Because this is a person who did it the correct way, went to a
yeah,
veteran, and you again, it goes back to not wanting to educate yourself or wanting to
yeah,
put blinders on. It's like, here is all of this information. Here is the fact that he went to a veteran. A veteran told him to do this, and your answer is still he's disrespecting veterans.
yeah,
When most of the veterans who I know are like, no, that's literally why I went to war. You're a fucking veteran. It's literally why you were in the military, so allow us all the rights to be able to protest. So
we took a
yeah,
vow to, yeah, we took a vow to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. We are supporting the First Amendment. We're supporting the rights of Americans to protest, to have free speech, to be able to say, hey, you know, protest for the injustices that are happening. We support you. We support, at least personally, I've met some of the most open-minded and liberal people I've ever met in the military, and some of the worst people I've ever met that I wish not good things on in the military. But at the same time, you look at these people and it's, you know, what have they been exposed to? Who have they met in their lives? Are they from the same town that have never ever seen anybody that doesn't look like them? Um, it's interesting to see the demographics that go through, but I would say on a whole, the majority, a lot of military members are in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, in support of fighting for justice. Because what most military members, at least from my experience, you know, enlist to make the world a better place for people. And how can you say, without being a hypocrite, that I joined the military to go free or help these people in this other country,
yep.
or help our own people, and not be supportive of this movement? It's absolutely hypocritical to say, hey, in the country where I live, people are not equal, and it's bullshit, you know?
It's there was a I wish I could be really specific, but there was a I remember reading a lot of stories about African American soldiers who came home from the war and were beaten and were treated like shit, and they fought for us. And
Yeah.
it's kind of I think the military. I have a very weird relationship with the military, being from a military family, but you know, I think that sometimes the point of things of why you have a military and why you have police have been so perverted to what the actual point originally was. Even though police comes from a weird background, but I just again, what's wrong with learning and growing and changing?
Agreed. I
Nothing.
mean, it's interesting seeing my military and police friends. From for those of you that are watching that don't know me, I train a lot of military and police members in self-defense, fighting, de-escalation methods, and how to,
It's really
act
good.
on engagement and use your voice first, using things that are deterrents to keep people safe. Because your job ultimately is to not harm anybody. Your job, at least in police officers, is to, what's up, Ken? How you doing? To go in and be as peaceful as possible. That's your job. Is you're a peace officer and an officer of the peace. Um, but it's crazy to see that the drilled rules of engagement for the military that are drilled into you from day one. The Marine Corps is a fighting force. The Marine Corps goes in and they fight. That's, I mean, it's very basic and very like, to the point. But at the same time, the rules of engagement are harsher for military members than there are for police force, and it's being enforced more stringently and drilled into every single day for military members who are in an actual combat zone, who are in war in other places. And to see police officers not adhering to and or even being held to like a tiny bit of that standard is almost embarrassing. It's almost
Why
embarrassing to say.
wouldn't we? Why
It's
wouldn't you
embarrassing.
hold them to a higher standard? Like, why? It makes no sense to me. Even
It
like
makes
the very idea of Blue Lives Matter makes no sense because as a cop, you can change into your regular outfit and leave your job and you're fine.
Yep.
Um, I don't get to change the color of my skin. I'm not that, I wish I was Mystique, but alas, I am not. Um, the very function of it is to just be a deterrent to Black Lives Matter. And if you can't understand like the easiest concept of Black Lives Matter, then do you not understand Breast Cancer Month in October? Does that it's not saying,
Yes. Yes.
fuck all these other cancers. We're not saying, only care about the Amazon. Like it's a really easy concept.
Yeah.
And you are being willfully ignorant if you aren't just paying attention. Because again, the information is right there. What are we
Yeah.
doing?
So it's so true though. It's just like, why can't you say it's a direct opposition to any argument that you have. You can't have an argument of all lives matter. You can't have an argument of blue lives matter
All
because
lives matter now, but they didn't matter like 4 weeks ago when you were like, I need a haircut, so fuck grandma. Like,
for reals though, yeah, it's crazy when you literally see pictures on the same street corners of all lives matter protesters and matters that are like, let us out so we can have haircuts, so we can do whatever, and the cops are just standing there masked being like,
nothing.
and the same street corner for the same exact time 3 weeks later, people are protesting for actual real things like, hey, all I want you to do is just to stop killing of black people. Let's just stop killing us. Just like literally make things even.
That's it.
And you have police officers in full tactical gear with, M16s or M4A1s, like with real shit. And it's just like, can people not see the hypocrisy that's going on? That's just like, it's embarrassingly, blatantly, systemically racist. And
And
I don't understand.
we, I think everyone's racist. That's my honest to God opinion. I think that we all have things in our head, whether we want to admit it, that have been boiled down in us, where we even sometimes say, fuck, that's so fucked up.
Yeah.
And I think that's natural because it's literally in everything that we see. It's seeing a movie on Netflix about Middle East. What tint is that going to be? It's going to be fucking yellow because the Middle East is dirty, even though it's beautiful.
Yep.
It's seeing, any bad guy. It's almost like the good guy, the white savior in Asian movies. The white savior in different movies. The fact that um, most casts are predominantly cis white straight men. I forget the statistic, but a couple of years ago, it was like people were like, "Oh, well, there's been a lot of women films," and I'm like, and the statistic was like 17%. It's like that's
Yeah.
not a lot. It's so small, and
Yeah. So
it's
bad.
it's it's embedded into our society in every single thing that we do. Since we're a kid, when we have gendered clothing, since like literally since the beginning, and it's going to take a really long time for us to get out of that. But it's okay to say, hey, I was raised in a society where this was the norm, and I need to reconfigure my thought process and rewire my brain so that I can become a better person because we all need to do it. So it's not a bad thing to say, hey, I'm a product of my surroundings.
Yeah.
But I know I'm a product of my surroundings. Now here's what I'm gonna do to better myself. It's a
Yeah.
really easy concept.
Yeah. I mean, there was a video I watched recently. It was a comedian saying it, but it was actually quite true. It's like you always want what's better for the next generation after you, right? It's like we
Yeah.
want things to be better now, but I hope that, and like you said earlier, we're on iPhones posting this now. I hope that the generations following us are like, man, I can't believe my grandpappy was on an iPhone that was made with cobalt mining African slaves and child labor in China, and like, man, that was crazy. And it's like the things that are happening now are hopefully informing the things that are happening in the future, where we'll be again ahead of where we are now. Um, but I find personally myself, it's very disheartening and hard not being, you know, it, I think not being an uber wealthy person, a lot of people feel that it's difficult to create change. Again, this is a grassroots, it's a big community thing where we have to come together to continue to make actual real change by voting, by protesting, by exercising our rights as Americans to say, hey, we think this is fucked up and this is not right, which I hope continues and we don't lose steam on.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
that
just
I think line.
it, it's an everyday battle, and I think that a lot of people. I agree. I think a lot of people were kind of like, "What can I do?" And not everyone has money. Not everyone can donate, but sharing something where
Yeah.
people can donate is super important. Citing petitions and like petitions are fucking easy now. You can sign one and you sign like
Yeah.
97 like in a row. Like there are, if you can and if you feel comfortable, you can go outside and protest. You could just talk about things and share articles
Yeah.
that you read
Yeah.
on Facebook.
No clickbait.
Um, because I think for me, one of the most powerful things is like when my white friends speak about things on Facebook to people who they may know or people may be a part of their family who are a little racist, and they have these uncomfortable conversations like in public, and people kind of go, and you can see that person be like, you know what? I'm just going to use Lauren, for example. You know what, Lauren, you're right. Like, I didn't think of it that way because I think changing one person's mind, one person's like thought process about something goes a long way because that one person could change someone else's thought process, who could change
Yeah.
someone else's thought process.
Yeah.
And that's how we get things to change. When we were kids, it was like, don't talk about race, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. Fuck that. Well, the
Yeah.
reason why we're in the place that we are now is because we never talked about it. Like, let's talk about it. Like this is life, this is real life. Why wouldn't you want to have a serious conversation? Like
Yeah.
I get it, I love wrestling, but like there's more to life than that. I love the Sims and I can't wait to play Sims, but there's more to life than that. And I think that it's just people kind of realizing their own privilege because we all have some sort of privilege, and taking your platform because every person has a platform. So that's the one thing that's great and awful about social media, but it's like every person has a platform and you should utilize it for as much good as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's it's great to have this like openness and communication and being able to have lines where you can discuss with somebody who is open to listening, and I know this is a thing that's easier because obviously you and I are very close friends and we can have these discussions. And like you said, it's hard to have discussions with family members or other people that aren't necessarily sharing the same views as you. But something you said really triggered me. It's like, man, how many people do I know that are of the same ilk as you and I? Like we have the same kind of viewpoints. If everybody just tried to say, hey, I'm going to work on one person, I'm going to get this one person to understand what's going on, that's hundreds of thousands of people understanding. I don't need
Yeah,
to change the views of everybody. I just need to change the views of one person.
one
If I get
person.
one person to understand, that's an exponential, like, snowball effect. I change this one person's mind. That one person goes, oh shit, I didn't even realize, wow, this whatever you said made me understand. And now they change somebody else's. Now we're talking about 100,000 people change 100,000 people. Now the 100,000 people change another 100,000 people. Now we're at 300,000 people collectively that have just kept this ball rolling. And it's just like, man, it's just crazy to think that, again, yeah, I don't have to change everybody's mind. I just need to say, hey, I think you can understand this. Let's talk and let's have a connection, and let's just slowly get this moving. And slowly is a term I don't want to say slowly, because we don't want things to take forever. But at the same time, like, hey, I want to get you to understand, not you, Darnell, but you, this person,
Yeah,
and this
yeah, yeah.
person. And now we get it going, and it's just like it's kind of mind blowing, saying, hey, the power of a grassroots social movement of, I can't even count, probably, I wonder if there's a statistic out there of how many people have actually gone out and marched, and a full total number throughout the country
Oh,
and
I don't
throughout the
know.
world. It's got to be mind blowing.
There
The
was a
number,
protest in every state.
you know,
Uh, yes, you're right. We never know.
really
Changing that
connected.
one person could potentially save another person's life, and it's obviously we should strive to change the idea of more than one person. But like, man, baby steps go a long fucking way, and I
Yeah,
think for me personally, if you come at me with a, you know what, I don't understand. Can you explain this to me? I'm happy to talk to you. You come at me with your neck all discombobulated because I ain't got time for that. You come at me wrong. No, we're not. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. Like, no, that's not what we're doing. Uh,
yeah, you're
it's
true.
really true. It's really true. I
Okay.
remember when I went to my company that I work for is an Amsterdam company. I remember the first time I went to Amsterdam, it was like very much so like, ooh, there are no dark skinned people here whatsoever. But everyone had great thighs because of their bicycles. Um, which
It's true.
like bicycling.
Take sides, save
Uh,
lives.
exactly. I do have to go. I have to work.
No, I agree. I think we should, like, I would love to have you on again now that we know your internet and
I'm
Instagram here.
shocked.
It's amazing.
Shocked.
So
Literally
why don't we
shocked.
plan? We'll say, hey, let's come on. Let's have, hopefully in another month, better, nicer things to talk about, and some progressive movements and things that have happened. And we'll call it, for today. We're an hour and a half in, and thank you so much for joining us.
I do want to
Shout
say
out to anything you want to do.
I do want to say one of the things that I found that I think that is really, really important is that I think we actually are doing something. The amount of my white friends who have recognized things and like have been like, you know what, I can do more, has been really uplifting for me and really like amazing to see. I do think the pandemic helped because I think people were in their heads for 3 months, and then, so this happened and this happened and this happened. But I think there are more people than I've ever seen before actually starting to get it. And I think that 2020, for better or for worse, will be a year that we look back that actually hopefully really did progress America's relationship with its own racism and genocide. Because I love our country. I think our country's bomb, but like we're never gonna get better unless we talk about where we came from. Because we seem to want to always get away from that, but it's like that's one of the issues with our country is because we never talked about these things. Like we need to talk about these things to grow. And so I would say thank you to all my friends, especially my friends who are white, who, have been like going to so many protests and donating and talking and being really, really open and having these open conversations because it's very uplifting and very incredible for me to see. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Dinolicious. It's a lot of wrestling and a lot of booty talking. I am tomorrow going to be on Twitch with a gentleman named Adam, who does. I'll have it in my Insta story. Um, but we're watching a Fire Pro professional wrestling. I booked the entire card with a lot of people from Uncanny Attractions, and all of the donations that we actually get for that will be given to my charity of choice, which is called the House of Gigi, which supports trans women of color in the South and helps them with like housing and food and everything. I do, if you do give to charities, and this is my own opinion, I look for these smaller charities to give them money. Black Lives Matter is a great foundation. They get a lot of money. So I think it's important to like give to other companies. The same thing, Minnesota Freedom Fund, which we gave a lot for George, which has been great, but they're overwhelmed with donations and they're like, stop giving us donations. Search out these smaller ones. Search out ones that deal with trans women of color because they don't get a lot of donations, they don't get a lot of money, and they don't get a lot of recognition. And let's not forget, our society has changed and our society has gotten better because of Black women and Black trans women and Latina trans women. They are the foundation of our country, and making sure things get better. But so if you can come on Twitch tomorrow, and if you want to see me talk, I'll be talking for a couple hours, and we'll be watching some wrestling and hopefully raising some money because that should be really fucking cool. And yeah, man, like every little thing, like that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing a donation stream. That's what I have to do. That's what I can give. But that little thing, hey man, if we get $100 in donations, if you get $500 in donations, that's me using my platform to better everyone. So think about this week. Think about every single day. What can you do to better someone? Because it's pretty amazing to actually try to make a difference. It's pretty fucking easy too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Dude, I miss you.
I love you very, very much.
I can't wait to be back in the city as soon as things open up and I can fly back. We're moving to Denver soon, so when we're back, I can fly back.
And then get Nick Stapp's t-shirt based off of Taking Back Sunday on Pro Wrestling Tees. They suck, but whatever. ProWrestlingTees.com, or maybe you can message Nick Stapp personally. He might send it from his house or something. But I love this t-shirt. I love him. He's a great wrestler. And thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. Thank you, Darnell. We'll have you back on again soon. And I love you, man. I miss you. And when I get back to the city, we'll hang out.
Mwah. Love you.
See you guys next week.
Bye.